Maybe you don't enjoy being alone as much as you think. Maybe being alone just feels safer. Safer than waiting for someone who doesn't show up. Safer than needing something and getting nothing back. Safer than opening your mouth and watching the room stay exactly the same. You call it introversion. You call it independence. You call it knowing yourself. But somewhere underneath all of that, you just learned that people were unpredictable. And alone was not. You didn't start out this way. There was a version of you that ran toward people, that reached out without thinking twice, that assumed, without evidence, that someone would be there. And then the evidence started coming in. Not all at once. Not in one moment you can point to. In the way a room could shift without warning. One day there was warmth. The next, distance. The same person. A completely different temperature. You'd walk in after school and scan the air before you said anything. Reading it. Trying to detect which version of the day you were walking into. Warm day, you could talk. Cold day, you made yourself small and waited for it to pass. And you got very good at reading the temperature. You learned to wait at the door, to check before you entered, to adjust before you were asked to. And when you needed something, when something was wrong and you brought it forward, the response was never quite what you needed. Maybe it was dismissal. Not cruel, just not enough. Maybe it was redirection. Your problem absorbed into someone else's bigger problem. Your need dissolved into the room before anyone addressed it. Maybe it was silence, the kind that wasn't peaceful, the kind that said, "I don't know what to do with this." So you stopped bringing things forward, not in anger, not in a dramatic moment. You just stopped opening the door. You found out something important. When you didn't need anything, when you arrived without requests, without wait, without anything that required something back, things went smoother. The temperature stayed stable. Nobody had to figure out what to do with you. You fit. So you made yourself fittable. You learned to manage your own bad days, to process your own disappointments, to sit with your own fear at night without turning to anyone. Not because you wanted to, because wanting to turn to someone had started to feel more painful than just handling it. Wanting had a cost, handling had none. And somewhere in that calculation, being alone became something other than loneliness. It became quiet, predictable, safe. You didn't have to adjust for anyone. You didn't have to scan the air. You didn't have to worry about which version of someone you were going to get. Alone meant no surprises. Alone meant no disappointment waiting on the other side of a door. Alone meant I am the only variable in this equation, and you could control yourself. You couldn't control anyone else, so you started building your life around the thing you could control. Your space, your silence. You built something very ordered and very quiet and very yours. And when people entered it, even people you wanted to let in, something shifted. The air became something you had to read again. You were good at reading air, but you were tired of having to. Now you are grown, and the preference for alone runs so deep you barely notice it anymore. It just feels like you. Like the way you take your coffee, like the way you sleep on one side of the bed. Just how you are. But watch what happens when someone gets close. Not obviously wrong close, just close. Consistently showing up, consistently warm. Something in you doesn't fully relax into it. Something stays slightly alert, slightly ready, waiting for the temperature to drop. Because that's what temperature does. You know this. Your body learned it before your mind had language for it. Warmth is not permanent. People are not predictable. Availability always runs out eventually. So even when someone is right there, present, steady, not going anywhere, some part of you is already preparing for when they're not. Already holding something back. Already keeping a version of yourself in reserve. Because the version of you that held nothing back, that opened fully, that asked openly, that trusted completely, that version got the education. And the education was, don't do that. It shows up in small ways now. You cancel plans and feel relief. Not guilt first, relief first. You come home from people, even people you love, and exhale in a way you didn't know you were holding. You have a limit on how much social contact feels okay before something in you starts pulling back toward the door, toward your space, toward the quiet, toward the only place where the temperature doesn't change. Here's what nobody tells you about the life you built. It works. That's the problem. Being alone works so well that you've stopped questioning whether it's what you actually want. You've stopped being able to tell the difference between preferring solitude and needing the protection of it. They feel identical now. And here's where it goes deeper. You've started to believe the story. The story that says you're someone who doesn't need much. Someone who genuinely thrives alone. And some of that is real. You do function well alone. You built that skill over years, and it works. But there is a girl underneath that skill, and she didn't choose solitude because she loved it. She chose it because the alternative had a pattern. The pattern was reach out to unpredictable response. Need something to, doesn't land. Open the door to temperature unknown. And she was tired of the pattern, so she stopped walking toward doors. Now, here's the part that cuts. The people you've let yourself get close to, the ones who made it past the first door, and the second, at some point, they did something. They weren't available in a moment you needed. Or they responded in a way that didn't reach you. Or they were warm and then, briefly, weren't. And something in you that had been carefully, quietly held together registered it, filed it, added it to the evidence, and pulled back. Not dramatically, not in a fight, just a degree of distance you created so smoothly, the other person may not have even noticed. But you noticed. You always notice when you close a door. You're very good at it. You've had a lot of practice. This is how it lives in you now. You have people in your life. Real ones. People who show up. But there's a ceiling, a point past which you don't go. Not because you don't want to, because the machinery that kept you safe for so long doesn't know how to turn off when it's no longer needed. It just keeps running. Keep the air readable. Keep the exit clear. Keep something back. Keep the version of you that's fine. Always accessible. You're good at being fine. You've been fine for years. Fine in a way that means, I processed this alone so thoroughly that by the time it reaches anyone else, it looks like it never happened. You're also very tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from being your own only consistent thing. From being the one who always manages. From being the one who doesn't require anything. From being, for years and years, the safest bet in your own life. Not because you wanted to be. Because you looked around at what was available and decided, I'll be the one thing I can count on. And you have been. And it has worked. And sometimes, in the quiet that you built and chose and maintain, something sits next to you that doesn't have a name. Not loneliness exactly. Something older than that. Something that remembers what it felt like to walk toward a door without reading the air first. You learned this. That's the thing nobody says. You didn't wake up one day and decide that alone was better. You ran the experiment enough times. You collected enough data. And alone kept coming back as the result, that hurt the least. That's not a personality. That's a conclusion. And you've been living inside that conclusion for so long. It feels like who you are. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's just the thing you built when the other options kept costing more than you had. You still don't know the difference. And some days, you're not sure you want to. And here is what that looked like from outside. You seemed easy, low maintenance, comfortable in your own company. People said it like it was a compliment. You're so independent. You don't need anything from anyone. And you took it because it was easier than explaining that the independence wasn't a personality trait. It was a solution. You had a problem. People were unpredictable, and you solved it. The solution was need less. The solution was expect nothing. The solution was build something so self-contained that the unpredictability of others couldn't reach the parts of you that still broke. That's not strength. That's engineering. You engineered your life around the one variable you couldn't fix, that people, even the ones who loved you, couldn't be counted on to be the same, from one day to the next. And this is the part that doesn't get said. You're not afraid of people. You're afraid of the specific feeling that comes after you let someone in, and they do the thing. Not a dramatic thing. Not a cruel thing. The moment their attention drifts. The moment they respond, but not quite to what you actually said. The moment you realize you were counting on them, and they didn't know you were counting on them. Because you never said so. Because you never say so. Because saying so would mean you had expected something. And expecting things is a door you learned to keep very, very carefully closed. There's also this. You've noticed that making plans feels fine. It's the day before the plan that something shifts. A low-level resistance. A quiet preference for the version of the day where the plan fell through. Not because you don't care about the person, because your body has a default setting. And the default setting is alone is known. People are a variable, and variables cost more than you have left.